Okay, good morning. So today's a little different to what you'd normally see me doing. We've been doing a series on the float, and on the run up to Christmas, these few weeks now, we were hoping to be on the river, showing you different methods with the different types of floats we do, and it's something we will be doing. But unfortunately, the river's not playing ball. Every river I know and fish is out of its banks, and we're getting continual rain every night, coupled with a week of frost and some more rain. So unfortunately we really are up against it on the rivers at the moment. So I've decided to come and show you something that I do in the winter mainly. This is a winter thing for me, but it's something you don't see a lot of people doing. As you can see, we're on this lake today and there's absolutely nobody else here. We're paid to fish. There's no special favours. We're just coming in, we're paid to fish, but it's really a match lake, a commercial fishery. Great place. It's called Spring Lea. It's in Shropshire. Caravan site, cafe, just like you'd expect, but it's dry. It's got a lake full of some really nice fish. I mean, you've got orf, you've got big perch, you've got carp, bream, tench. There's all sorts of things in here, and what we're doing is we're gonna take a bit of a different take on how we fish it. Instead of just fishing in a swim, say with a seat box and a pole, what we're going to do is we're going to fish it like I'd fish a river. So I'm going to walk round, I'm going to make a bait mix, which I'm going to show you in a second, and then I'm going to walk round, I'm going to bait a few spots, and then I'm just going to creep round throughout the day, just with a bit of light tackle, just flicking in over those baited spots that I baited, and hopefully catch one or two nice fish. And it's active fishing, it's interesting fishing, and I hope after you've watched this video you'll be interested enough to go and have a go yourself and try and catch a few fish from a venue like this in this way. Okay, so we're going to look at what sort of bait mix I'm going to use to bait these spots that I'm going to fish over, and it's pretty simple really. And I use a few ways of deciding what I'm going to use. I've been into my local tackle shop. I've chatted to the guys in there. They fish matches on places like this. In fact, they were fishing a match on the pool next door just the other day. And they were telling me that they're catching on a lot of live bait, which is something I would use for carp-based fishing, you know, small carp, big carp, at this time of year. Once it gets cold, you can't beat the movement, the smell, and the fact that live baits don't really fill the fish up. We don't want to be putting anything in, maggots keep escaping, we don't want to be putting anything in that's going to fill the carp up today. We want to just keep them interested, keep them feeding, and keep them nipping back to those spots that we're going to bait, and hopefully, you know, we'll get a chance to nick one on some light gear. So to start with, I've put in a couple of slices of white bread and some lake water, and I've just soaked that so it mushes up. So that's just the simple base to the bottom of my bucket. Next, I'm using hemp. I mean, I'm a fan of Sonia baits, as you can probably tell by my hat and the fact that I use them on all my features, but Sonia baits hemp, it's absolutely fantastic, cooked to perfection, in a tin, smells great and fantastic in the winter. So I love that. Bit of crunch as well. I think when the carp can hear that being crunched, talking of crunch, casters, you only need a pint. Honestly, I know they're expensive, but you know, they are so worth it. So get yourself some casters. If you're out this time of year, the casters in the mix just really do add another dimension. You don't have to be overly fussy about keeping them. I mean, I used to get the casters that didn't sell in the week, I'd get them frozen off the tackle shop, and I'd use those in this sort of mix. They're totally fine. It doesn't even matter if you get a few floaters. It just lets some bait come up through the water and move about. So we've got hemp, we've got some mashed bread, and we've got some casters. Still nothing we can really fill them up with. maggots, reds, with the occasional bronze. Now if I was on a river, I'd go totally the other way. Bronze with the occasional red. Almost like target baits. But talking to the match lads, talking to the guys in the shop here, they're all out to help you try and catch fish. They're like, red maggots are the one here. So I'll put about half a pint of those in. I'm going to keep some so I can catty just a few maggots over the spot whenever I want. So they're my bait that I can loose feed when I'm fishing somewhere on one of these tight little patches I'm baiting. Okay, in here, dendras, worm, fantastic. I'm going to chop them. I'm not overly bothered if I chop every one. It's not scientific. Just releases a bit of juices, some of that flavour. And I don't mind if I keep a bit of the soil in there. Quite happy with a bit of that soil being in. Movement, juices, smell, and a bit of dark colouring. Love it. So happy to put that soil in. That's me worm. Not going to use much at this time of year, but this is the pellet they sell at the shop for the fishery. They see this food all year round. It's the #1 bait in the summer. I just add a couple of handfuls. I don't want too much. I don't want to fill them up on pellet at this time of year. All I want to do is just have that sort of hint of it about, you know, the odd one or two for them to pick up as they're feeding on the patch. And then lastly, I'm using a bit of Super Crush expander. I mean, it's basically what we've just shown you in the pellet, crushed down and refined. I use this just to bind the mix up a bit and just to keep it all. I don't want it. Well, I might fish a method later on. We don't know. I'm not saying that I'm not going to fish a method later on, but I don't want to make this a method mix now. But I want to just make it so it's just a bit more together than just the free baits that I've put in at the moment. So I'm just using it as a bit of a binder with that soaked bread that I got in the bottom, and it'll just bind it a little more. That's perfect. Don't inhale it. I nearly forgot. Tyrone got this the minute I opened the van today. What have you got in there? Liver powder. You can get it from loads of places online. You can even get it from Holland Barrett places. You don't need much. But if you've ever used it in the winter, it is the best attractor. You've seen me use it before. If you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know I use it for loads and loads of things. But maggot mixed with liver powder and chopped worm in the winter, I'm afraid, will catch you anything. That's lovely. That's just starting to just clag together. And disgustingly, that's the mix I've been trying to create. We've got live bait, juicy bits of worm, juicy bits of maggot, crunchy casters, crunchy hemp, the odd pellet, and just that bit of ground bait just bounded up. And just as that falls through the water, that just breaks up and gives off a lovely milky film. Exactly what we want to wake these sleepy cold water fish up. Okay, so we'll go around now and I'll show you how I'll use the scoop on the end of my net pole, and we'll just bait a few spots. We haven't even got a rod out the car yet. There's no need to get a rod out the car yet. We're going to go around and we're just going to pop a bit of bait in a few places and then we'll give it another half hour or so, probably nip back and put a little bit more in, and then we'll just start nipping round those spots and just dropping probably a float rig over the top and just seeing if there is anything actually feeding on them. So bit of quiet, bit of stealth, and a little bit of feed. So let's go and give them some food. Okay, so we've hooked a fish. We've had to change a little bit to what we first thought. Still got our baited spots. As we were walking round, noticed a couple of fish show out in open water. Been round with the Polaroids, seen nothing in the margin. Put those in my pocket before. Good fish though. See nothing in the margin. But we'll keep feeding that for the day. See if we get an hour at the end. We did see these fish out in open water. So I've gone in with a bit of a method that you don't see many people fish. We'll talk about it in a bit. It's all to do with a bit of bread and some maggots and a feeder, ready Ellie kit, little short rig, and something I've pinched off the woods, which is a pellet band, and a little bit of punch bread in the middle. Roll bread, really. But anyway, let's see if we can get this fish in. Then we're off and running. These little all-round quibbers. Absolutely fantastic rods. Okay, so I'm going to be quick with him because he's a lively little fella, as you can see. But first one of the day. It's taken us a bit, but we've managed to get another bite. And I've got to be honest, it feels like a very powerful fish. This light gear is really good fun to play fish on. And it just shows matching your gear to the fish you're fishing for is the key, because you know, this is as good fun as playing a big carp on heavier gear. So we fed our couple of little spots we've been feeding since this morning. I was hoping to fish one with a float, but the fish action is really, really quiet. And whenever we've gone to an area like when we were casting to the fish we were seeing over there before, they're straight away shying off where we're putting bait. 2-3 casts, 2-3 lots of bait in the water, and they're gone. And so what I've done is come round and gone in the middle of where that rod's knocking as well now. I've gone in the middle of where I put bait out, and I put one rod on each spot, stuck with the feeder. I've got one of our Korum maggot feeders on here, but I've actually put a pellet on a band, because I'm just not convinced they stopped eating pellet. And I know from float fishing in here that just maggot on the hook can be really quite difficult to get a bite on. Don't ask me why. Probably if I went to a hair rig with it, it'd be a bit easier, but God, they are fighting well today. I think it's a case we've had that much water in with the rain over the last month or two that it's really oxygenated the water. Plus they're not being fished for that much at the moment. Yeah, I've got a double hooker. I'm just going to let that one go at the moment. It's in no danger. There's no snags. It's running away nicely. Trying to bully this one in, but he's out in the middle of the lake. Oh, he's come off. I know he hasn't. So we're on the other rod, as you've probably heard. So it's a double take, and that is the beauty of this sort of fishing when you get it right. These sort of places have got so many fish in to catch, so when it does come right for you, you can really bag up. And I mean, the reason I wanted to do this today was because if I was fishing a flooded river, and I mean very flooded, you know, at 2 metres 80 in Shrewsbury, the river's out of its banks. Today it's 3:30 and rising, so it's actually in the field, so you're wading through field before you can actually fish it. There is a place I know where we can fish at this height, and I have caught quite a lot of barbel there, but to be honest, I'm wading to a small island which is the bank, and it's quite a dangerous place to fish, and it's just big heavy feeders, heavy gear, and brutal really. And I don't know, I've come here, what we've been fishing now, we haven't even been fishing 3 hours, and like we're playing our third fish that's just, as you can see, giving us absolute hell. It's just great fun. Now that, excellent. Off he goes. There we are. Another mint winter's afternoon common. Great sport. 2 at once there. And really nice fish. So fit, so powerful. And on that balance gear, like I say, really enjoyable fight. So I'm just going to run through the rig we've been using today. Unfortunately, I mean, like I say this morning, I wanted to catch fish, light tackle, float if possible. That's been the sort of go-to on the series, but unfortunately we've had to divert from the river. It's been a great afternoon sport, but unfortunately it wasn't right for the float at all. The little spots we've fed, it took us quite a few hours to get fish on the spots, and you could tell that by the water was clear, and then as we kept watching the spots, it's starting to murk up and you can tell something's on them. We were watching the coots to see if it was coots diving or anything like that, but they started in the end to murk up that much that it was obvious it was fish. And we've gone on and we've managed a couple more bites, but it's not been that, you know, we haven't had that many fish feeding on them that we can just sit there and feed over the top and hopefully up one on a float. So what we've been using, and as in all fishing, how often do you set out with one method and another method ends up catching you the fish? So always have a plan B and a plan C and D. Anyway, so what we've been doing is we've been using a big open-ended Preston feeder on the bottom, a ready heli kit, short power line hook link, specimen hook, and then the very small one of our mega bands on the back of the hook. Now, I'll start with putting on the hook bait and then I'll work back to the feeder, because if I do the feeder first, I'm going to get covered in maggots while I'm talking to you. So basically I'm using our bandem tool. I'm just opening up that band, and then really it's as simple as that. Just shoving in a piece of bread. So if you can see that there, now I can't claim that this is my idea. I'd love to, but I can't. It would be unfair. Pinching it off, and you can adjust that really on the hook wherever you want it. I'm sort of 3/4 of the way down the back of the band. Lovely. Just sits lovely on the back of the hook, piece of bread. How simple, but what an effective winter bait. Chub, roach, bream, carp, anything, river, lake, cracking winter bait. So that's on our ready heli kit, tied on a short hook link. Like I say, Preston power line, specimen hook, mega band, piece of bread. A couple of times I've nicked on a maggot as well on the hook. A couple of times I haven't, it doesn't really matter. Okay, to the feeder then. So the thing I'm doing with the feeder is, and we developed this a few years ago on another water with quite a few carp, and it was extremely effective in the cold water. I'm taking quite a large piece of bread and I'm blocking that end of the feeder up. Sometimes it'll take a couple. Don't mind if there's a bit of crust in there, because that helps float out. But basically what happens with this, it blocks up the end of my feeder, but as it starts to swell in the water, it starts to puff out, and if you just jerk the rod back a bit, after about 5 or 10 minutes of fishing, if you haven't had a bite, it just starts to release all the maggots and everything quicker, and the bits of bread. Now some of the bits of crust and stuff will float up through the water. Now I quite like that, because if you've got fish sitting mid-water, halfway up, it's feeding them, you know, or attracting them, if you like, as it comes up past them, drawing their attention to what you've got on the bottom, which I think pulls you a few more bites when it's cold. Especially when carp, they will sit up off the bottom. Even in quite shallow water, the only time they're really on the bottom is when they're feeding hard, and they're not feeding hard for long periods. I mean, we've witnessed that today, you know, with 2 runs at once and then sitting there for an hour with nothing. They're short periods where they go on the feed and then they shut right down again. So maggots in the middle, another good dollop of bread, and just pushing that in so it's got it together. Our little piece of bread, like I said, if you want, which has been effective. The guys at the shop here were talking about this morning. So I think it's a size 12 barbless specimen. 2 pieces of bread, some maggots wedged in the middle. And as that goes down through the water, bits of bread will come out. As the bread soaks up water and expands, puffs out, so there's bits of bread around on the bottom, and then your maggots start to fall around. And your hook bait is sitting right there with it, and the weight of the feeder gives you the bolt effect. It's been really effective today, and it's been, you know, on a day when we've not seen much else caught actually. We even chucked some guys up there, so some of the bread and that, because they didn't have any, they weren't getting any bites. So give it a whirl, with or without the maggots. I mean, I put liquidized bread in the middle. You're not allowed to use liquidized bread here, but I put liquidized bread in the middle before and a piece each end, and that works really well. Again, with a piece of bread. I mean, I used to pinch the bread on, or put a small pellet on the hair and then mold the bread around, but this banding on the bread really seems to be quite effective. So super simple rig, but really effective on venues like this in cold water. Yeah. So there it is. Last little one today. Time to pack up now. What a great afternoon sport. Catching on a feeder. Ready Ellie kit. Proper winter tactics. And God, they're cold to hold. Great fun. See you again soon.